If you look at your life and see a graveyard of half-finished projects, you feel something heavy. A guitar in the corner, an unfinished website, baking tools, and a sudden urge to learn jiu-jitsu. Each abandoned interest carries a quiet sense of shame you rarely talk about openly. Society has a word for people like you: unfocused, scattered, or lacking discipline. They say you cannot commit, cannot specialize, and cannot stay in one lane long enough. You may even call yourself a jack of all trades, master of none, with disappointment. You use that phrase to explain why you feel behind or inadequate compared to others. But that phrase was never meant to insult people like you. The full meaning is often forgotten, misunderstood, and used as self-punishment instead. A psychology suggests this scattered feeling is not a personal defect. It is a sign of something your nervous system is quietly trying to build. You are not failing to specialize because you lack grit or focus. You are adapting to a world that no longer rewards narrow paths the same way. Your curiosity is not chaos, it is preparation. And to understand why, we need to unlearn a lie you were taught early. 1. The shame of having too many interests. When you look at your life, you see unfinished projects instead of clear progress. A guitar you stopped practicing, a website never completed, skills left half-developed. Each abandoned interest carries a quiet sense of personal shame. You compare yourself to people who chose one lane and stayed there. They seem stable, focused, and ahead while you feel scattered and behind. You start believing your curiosity means lack of discipline or grit. So you label yourself a jack of all trades, master of none, not realizing that this shame comes from a narrow idea of success. Because the problem is not your interests. It is how you were taught to judge them. 2. The lie of specialization you were taught to believe. For a long time, the world rewarded people who chose one path and stayed there. Success meant digging one hole deeper while ignoring everything else around it. If you practiced the same skill long enough, you were promised stability and progress. This worked because the rules of the game rarely changed. Industries moved slowly, careers lasted decades, and expertise stayed relevant. So specialization became the definition of discipline and maturity. Anyone who drifted was seen as unfocused or irresponsible. But that model belongs to a different era. Your brain senses that the rules are no longer stable. And that is why committing to one narrow lane feels increasingly uncomfortable. 3. The modern world is a wicked environment. The world you are navigating now does not reward predictability the way it once did. Rules change constantly, industries shift quickly, and skills lose value overnight. Psychologists call this kind of environment wicked and unstable. In a wicked environment, deep specialization becomes fragile instead of secure. When one industry changes, specialists are often left without alternatives. Your nervous system senses this instability before you consciously recognize it. So instead of committing deeply to one area, you begin to explore many. To outsiders, this looks like chaos or indecision. But psychologically, it is a form of risk management. You are preparing for change, not failing to commit. 4. Curiosity looks like chaos from the outside. One year you are absorbed in technical skills, systems, or how things physically work. The next year your attention shifts toward art, movement, philosophy, or creative expression. To someone watching from the outside, this looks random and unfocused. They assume you lack direction because your interests keep changing shape. But internally, each interest is adding a new data point. You are not wandering aimlessly between hobbies. You are collecting perspectives from different domains. Each field teaches you how systems behave, grow, or fail. Your brain is mapping patterns, not chasing novelty for its own sake. What looks like chaos is actually information gathering in disguise. 5. Far transfer is where your real advantage lies. Most specialists rely on near transfer to solve problems they have already seen before. They apply familiar tools to familiar situations within the same narrow domain. You operate differently, often without realizing it. You take ideas from one field and apply them to something completely unrelated. Psychology calls this far transfer, and it is where innovation usually happens. Your value is not in being the deepest expert in one area. It is in connecting patterns that others never think to combine. What feels like scattered experience becomes synthesis when the moment demands it. You are not behind because you lack depth. You are ahead in a direction most people cannot see yet. 6. Why you feel behind even when you are adapting correctly. You look at people your age becoming managers, experts, or leaders in one clear field. Meanwhile, you feel like you are still starting over again and again. This creates anxiety, burnout, and a constant sense of being late in life. But this feeling comes from misunderstanding the shape of your own growth. You compare a straight path to a path that was never meant to be straight. Your progress is spread across domains, not stacked in one visible column. So it looks slower, even when it is building something broader underneath. You are not falling behind. You are moving in a different geometry entirely. 7. You are not T-shaped, you are M-shaped. You are often told to become T-shaped, broad knowledge with one deep specialty. But that model never quite fits how your curiosity actually works. You do not want one pillar of depth. You want several. An M-shaped mind builds multiple areas of real competence over time. Each pillar is connected by curiosity, not forced focus. The mistake is trying to build every pillar at the same time. When you do that, everything feels overwhelming and unfinished. The problem is not your interests. It is the timing and structure you were never taught. 8. Serial mastery means building one pillar at a time. An M-shaped life is not built through simultaneous obsession with everything you enjoy. It is built through seasons of focused attention, one pillar at a time. You might spend years immersed in art, music, or creative exploration. Later, you shift toward technical or practical skills to support yourself financially. You did not abandon your earlier interests. You completed a season of growth and moved to the next. Serial mastery allows depth without forcing permanent commitment. Each season adds structure to your M-shape instead of collapsing it. The mistake is thinking focus must last forever to be valid. In reality, focus only needs to last long enough to build something real. 9. Protecting your energy matters more than forcing everything to merge. Some people eventually realize they do not need to combine all interests at once. They allow one pillar to pay the bills while others live quietly on evenings or weekends. This decision is not settling or giving up on creativity. It is protecting mental and emotional energy from constant overload. When you try to merge everything too early, burnout usually follows. Pressure kills curiosity faster than failure ever could. Letting interests exist separately gives them room to mature naturally. Over time, connections begin forming without being forced. What felt fragmented slowly starts aligning on its own. Energy protection is what allows the M shape to survive long enough to integrate. 10. Redundancy is not waste, it is evolutionary strength. In nature, redundancy is a survival advantage, not an inefficiency to eliminate. Systems with backups survive shocks that optimized systems cannot recover from. Elephants resist cancer because they carry multiple copies of protective genes. If one system fails, another quietly takes over. Your many interests function the same way. Each skill is not excess, it is insurance. A single specialist becomes fragile when their industry shifts or disappears. But someone with multiple competencies always has another place to stand. Your curiosity has been building redundancy without you realizing its purpose. What looked like wasted time was actually risk distribution. 11. Strategic adaptability is the real safety net in an uncertain future. Technology shifts quickly, industries collapse suddenly, and stable paths disappear without warning. When one skill loses value, panic follows for those who built everything on it. But people with multiple pillars adapt instead of freezing. They pivot using skills that already exist, not ones they must learn under pressure. This adaptability creates psychological safety even in unstable economies. You are not trapped when change arrives. You are already holding several exits. This is why your curiosity feels restless instead of satisfied by one role. It is scanning for future relevance, not present approval. In a volatile world, adaptability matters more than perfection. So stop apologizing for the graveyard of interests behind you. Those were not failures or distractions from your real path. They were semesters in a university you designed for yourself. You were never meant to be just one thing for your entire life. You were built to connect ideas, systems, and worlds others never notice. An M-shaped mind is not confused or unfocused. It is prepared. And in the future you are walking into, preparation will matter more than specialization.